Welcome to the Everything Coworking podcast. This is your host, Jamie Russo. Thank you for joining me. I mentioned on last week's episode that we're running a series on how to add revenue to your coworking business. This is for you if you're already operating or if you're working on opening a co-working space and want to know how to do it right. Speaking of which, if you are thinking about opening a co-working space, we have a free masterclass on how to do just that profitably. We share all our behind the scenes secrets. You can grab our free masterclass at everythingcoworking.com/masterclass. Okay, here's a scenario I run into all the time. An operator is not at full capacity, and you shouldn't be. If you're at 100% capacity, guess what? Your prices are too low. You never want to be at full capacity, and you shouldn't model 100% occupancy. You should model at best 95%. Oftentimes, operators struggle to get to 95% because unless you have perfectly designed from scratch and built to spec your perfect floor plan, you probably have an interior office that is not quite desirable or an office that's too big for your market, 4 person, 5 person kind of space that just keeps sitting vacant. And your solution is probably to throw it on Liquid Space as a day office and hope for the best. And maybe you get a booking here and there, you get a little bit of revenue, you're happy to have something, you sort of feel like you're doing what you can, but that revenue is unpredictable, it's not recurring, and it's not optimizing that space. It's not really solving your problem. There is another option, and I will tell you that some of the major national players like Regis are selling the crap out of this product, and it is the part-time private office. So I want to talk about this product. We just did a full training on how to price it, how to set it up logistically. We had some awesome crowd sharers from the group who have the product and shared how they price it, how it works for them. So a huge shout out to Sylvie, Chris, Kirsten, and Dan for sharing on that call and sharing their experience and pro tips. I will tell you that it's unusual that we had 3 people on a call who are offering that product. And actually, I give Dan Wesson and Shell Peterson credit. They own the post workspaces for, I think, they basically invented this product in terms of it being a recurring revenue product. I totally get the day office has been around forever. The day office has its place. I, for one, love recurring revenue. I love to go to sleep at night and think about the revenue that I know is coming into my bank account each month. The unpredictable sort of transactional revenue, not my favorite. We'll take it, but not my favorite. So I want to talk about why the product exists, who it's for, and why I think it's one of the most underutilized opportunities out there. I will tell you, we did this training for the community manager program, and I create the training every month, and I was doing the research trying to find examples of the part-time private office. And it is very difficult to find examples because either they exist and operators are just not marketing those examples very well, and I cannot find them, or more likely, it's a product that is not very often offered. So I am hoping that you will consider this product. It is one of my favorite products. I think it makes a ridiculous amount of sense. Think about, okay, so I operated co-working spaces for 8 years. You have those offices that I used to have this. I used to have these members who would have offices and they'd be there very occasionally, and then they would go for weeks and I would never see them. I know that's not very common, but I used to be like, I wish I could Airbnb their office and make more revenue while they're not using it. Like they clearly don't need it every day. Certainly you have some office members who are, it's their routine, they're showing up every day. Most of them do not, right? Most people do not work from the office every single day. So for many people, they only need a part-time private office and they don't need to put pictures of their kids on the walls and put their diplomas up and make a big mess like many of our office members do. They just need the use of an office. So On last week's episode, we talked about the fact that workspace revenue is probably 60 to 70% of your revenue, and that 10% of that workspace revenue is generally open plan. So some sort of co-working, flexible, open plan, hot desk membership. 10%. And this is because people who can co-work generally don't need to be on the phone. They don't have lots of meetings, and they can sit in an open space and not talk on the phone and not meet with people. And the co-working membership for them is very discretionary, right? It's not a need, it's a want. They are escaping probably their kitchen counter. Probably not escaping a home office, because it's probably better to be in a home office than in a co-working space if you have a home office. And it's just a small segment of people in the universe of people who can afford to join co-working spaces that don't need an office. That is just a fact. That's why it's roughly 10% of workspace revenue. So that is because people need to be on the phone. They need sound privacy, or they need visual privacy, or they just, they can't focus in an open space. But generally, sound privacy is a big driver. And so people who don't need a full-time office or aren't quite ready for that for their business, the stage of their business, they're often stuck. Day offices are really pretty expensive. They have a pretty high hourly rate. So if I need an office for several hours, and that just may not feel very approachable or affordable on a regular basis. So again, that's why day office revenue, you might have some recurring, but a lot of people are doing the math and they don't, if they're seeing clients, they don't want 25% of that hourly rate to be eaten up by your day office price. So they figure out some other solution. That is why the part-time private office, you're paying a premium for access to an office that is not yours all the time. This is from the consumer standpoint. So the operator can oversell this office. They can Airbnb it. I'm using my air quotes if you're watching on YouTube, like I wanted to all of those years ago. So, okay, I'm sort of talking about this product, but let me try to be super clear. A part-time private office is not a day office. So a day office is transactional on-demand rental priced at a pretty high per hour or per day basis. It's essentially a meeting room that has a desk in it and is, not necessarily meant for meetings. A part-time private office is a recurring membership. So your member buys a bucket of hours per month or certain days per week, and they reserve the office when they need it, just like a meeting room, but they're paying on a subscription basis. And the keyword here, the keyword that helps us sleep well at night, is recurring. So you're building predictable recurring revenue, not chasing one-off bookings. And here's the thing that makes the economics work. Same thing with bundling meeting room hours with your virtual mail package. People underutilize what they pay for. You already know this. People pay for offices, they don't show up. They pay for full-time co-working, although they often don't if we give them an option, because they don't use it all the time. They buy a virtual mail package that has 20 meeting room credits. They don't use any, or maybe they use a few. Almost nobody burns through all of the hours that are available to them. So the part-time private office works exactly the same way. You can sell memberships into the same physical office because utilization doesn't max out, and you end up making significantly more on that one room than you would from a full-time tenant. Dan Wesson says he aims to make 2 times as much on that office, or he won't do it. It's not worth the work. So I love that. I will say, well, we'll get to it. He is the first person who started talking about this product. He may not have invented it, but I'll give he and Shell props for that. During COVID, he said he was making 3 to 4 times what those offices would have generated as standard full-time private offices by overselling them and having multiple people use them. He requires 4-hour bookings for his meeting rooms. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but that's just how he does it. And it worked really well for him. And he said that multiplier has gone down, but he's still doing at least 2 times, and he has many of those offices. Why this product matters more than ever. COVID was 5 years-ish ago, but something shifted in how people think about using things, right? And we're not going back. People don't want to pay for things that they don't need. And we see that all over the place. That's why Uber works and Uber Eats and Waymo, and Uber Eats is a bad example. But fractional usage and not having to own something, there will always be a segment of people who want their own private office and they want it to be dedicated just to them, and they're going to use it. most of the time. But there's a segment of people who aren't ready for that or just don't see the need to spend money on something that they're not using all the time. That's where this segment comes in and creates the demand for the part-time private office. They might come in for client meetings, for focus group, focus work. They need privacy when they need it, but they don't need to be paying for space every single day of the month. And if you only offer full-time private offices, then you're sending these people away. You don't have a product for them. And this is where, so you're not a fit for everybody who doesn't have the budget for your space, but oftentimes the budget is because they're building a business. They're just not ready to pay $800, $1,000 a month for an office, but they can pay 200, 300, 400 for access to a part-time private office. And again, they're paying a premium to avoid paying for it full time, just like Uber, right? You're paying a premium for that trip to the airport so that you don't have to drive your car there and park it or to go out at night or whatever it is. You're paying a premium for that short term use. The part time private office closes that gap for people who just aren't ready or don't need and don't want to spend the full budget for a full time private office. So it gives you a product for a person who would love to have an office but can't justify that full monthly commitment. It's also the perfect product for that co-working member who's living in your phone booth. You can picture them. You probably have more than one. And they're trying to keep their budget low. So they've gotten a co-working membership, but they're overutilizing your phone booth and making you crazy. Or they're squatting in a meeting room, or they're talking loudly in the open space. They don't want it. You don't want it. But their budget is what it is. So this is a great solution to provide that upgrade. One of the operators in our Community Manager University program described it perfectly. She said, when a co-working member comes to her and says, I feel like I'm living in the phone booth, she walks them through the part-time private office option and shows them that for a little more per month, they get private room access when they need it, and they're so relieved and they convert. And then she can double her monthly revenue on that member because the member may not be may have a budget for a little bit more than a co-working membership, just not a full-time private office. And our co-working memberships, the price points are being compressed, right? They're lower than they've ever been. So if you can offer some privacy for a premium, then your revenue is going to increase. Okay, so let's talk about who buys this product. Again, we have a full detailed training. You can hear all of the behind the scenes on how people set up this product, how it gets used, how they market it, etc., in our Community Manager University program. But let me keep going with some profiles of who uses this space. Therapist is an easy one. Therapist is such a growing segment for co-working spaces. But a couple of challenges for therapists. One, there's a lot of challenges, right? You need to have parking, you need to have some sort of entryway, generally that's manned. You need to, maybe they don't want their clients to have to walk, far through the space to get to a meeting room. There can be reasons why therapists don't want to use a co-working space, but lots of therapists are using co-working spaces. They are definitely using co-working spaces that are designed specifically for therapists. And I think this is really helping to increase the awareness among therapists that this is a possibility. So I love this because most therapists live in crappy, cheap buildings. Even in nice towns, we have lots of bad therapist buildings in my town, which is otherwise pretty nice. And it's just the real estate is too expensive for them. And oftentimes they're office sharing. They're already sort of piecing together this will you use the space in these hours and I'll use these hours or these days, because therapists, have a lot of downtime where they're not seeing clients, maybe during the workday or during the school day, or they're building their private practice. And so it's taking them time to need a full-time private office. So many of you have therapists who do have full-time private offices. The segment you could be attracting is those therapists who have smaller practices or are building their practice. So attorneys, financial planners, newer business owners who, again, lower budget and just don't feel like they can commit yet. Maybe they're ready for the address. I love, shout out to Mercedes and Lee at Katy Elite Suites in Katy, Texas. They just created a new package that has a virtual address and includes private office hours. I love it so much. So that is a higher end package. Also, it's more expensive than most co-working memberships. So I love that bundle. It creates a lot of opportunity for the owner and for the user. You're solving problems for people who otherwise can't use your space because they need privacy, because they don't have the budget, not because they're not a fit for your space, but just because they fall into one of those camps. Business consultants, there are lots of segments, again, who might need space, but on a part-time basis. The real reason I think operators don't do it is because they don't think it's going to work, or they try it and they don't stick with it long enough to make it work. Just like we talked about last week when it comes to increasing revenue on non-workspace products, this is a workspace product for sure, but it requires the same focus, the same marketing effort that a separate product would. So people, you need to put it on your website. It should have its own landing page. It should be very clear how it works. You should be able to sign up for it online. This is an e-commerce product, right? Because it's a lower dollar value. I'm sure people will still come in for tours for the most part, but should be easy to sign up for. Needs a landing page, needs to be treated as a product that people can learn about and understand and book a tour to come in and see or buy right away. The trick is, like a meeting room, utilization takes time to build. And so if you just start out and you're looking for it to hit that 2 to 3 times monthly office revenue, it's not going to do that right away. You have to build the demand for it. You have to build the word of mouth, just like any other product. You have to build it up. And it will take time for those leads to come through who are interested. And it'll take time for your team to learn to talk about it, to learn how to comfortably sell it. So give it some time before you say, this isn't working, it's not for me. You could, here's my recommendation. Don't take your, easiest to sell office and turn it into a part-time private office and look to make 3 times. How about you pick something that's harder to sell, like the office that's been vacant for 4 months because it's a little bigger than it needs to be. Maybe it's an interior office. Your bar is low in terms of making revenue. Maybe you're just hoping to hit market revenue in a month for it. Market. There is no market revenue if it doesn't have the demand that you need to have. So stick with it. Pro tip from Dan Wesson. Okay, so I am going to talk through this at a high level. If you want all the details, it's in our detailed training. But the economics, sort of the short version, is that this works because of utilization. I know I talked about this at the beginning, but it's worth repeating that you are selling a bucket of hours. There are people who do days of the week and they love doing it that way. You're not overselling in the same way, but it's maybe more predictable and easier to manage logistically if you're simply selling days of the week. You are charging a premium for access to something that's not a full-time office. So you do win there. I think if you're looking to optimize revenue, you're doing the bucket of hours and really hoping for underutilization. So somebody buys 20 hours a month and they're using 60% of those hours. That allows you to oversell more times the office. I should mention, I also built a very snazzy calculator that you can get your hands on if you're in our program. It's also part of our operator membership. And it allows you to kind of play with the packages and the pricing and see what your monthly revenue might be based on the combination of factors that you decide on. And it makes some recommendations if you just want to keep it super simple. So that calculator is awesome. And if you're part of our community manager program or our operator membership and you didn't go through the training, it's in your portal and the link to the calculator is in the attachments under the training video. So we are talking about a price point that is much lower per hour, like $5 to $6 an hour instead of the day office rate of like $25 an hour. So it's much more affordable. But again, the user is not buying one day at a time. They're buying a recurring package that is hundreds of dollars a month. And when I say hundreds, I probably mean 200 to 300, depending on your market and various other things. So, okay, I do want to mention that you want to do some research on what's happening in your market when you price this. Although I would just use the pricing calculator and go with it. Sometimes there are bigger operators doing things in our markets that we cannot do, and we can't price match them, right? So we have to do our own thing and go with the fact that we have our own unique selling propositions and that people will pick us for various reasons. We should know what those are and be focused on communicating those. But Regis, for example, like I mentioned at the beginning, sells this hard. And you know it's a good product and it works when Regis has their sales machine going against it. You will see if you look online and kind of go through their sales funnel that they sell, I think it's unlimited access to a part-time private office, which seems totally crazy. You have to book it and you might not get the location closest to you. So Regis can do this because they have lots of locations. In most markets, they have more than one location. If they don't, then you may not get access when you want it or need it. So just know that programs are priced differently. And you may see some things like who knows why the operator is doing it a certain way. You do it how it works for you and train your team to sell on the value and market it on your website and work on your SEO and do all of the things that you would do to focus on and grow a new product. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up with a little summary. It's not a complicated product, but so few of you are doing it. I think it's a huge opportunity. I personally love this product so much, I would use it constantly. I have calls all the time and I have to record things and whatever. I cannot go and work in a co-working space. I need an office, but I don't need a full-time private office. And they're very expensive in my market, PS. Okay, what makes this product work is commitment. Try it and stick to it and do everything you would do to launch a new product. You need a landing page, you need to train your team on it, you need to give your team time to learn how to sell it, you need to coach them on it, you need to check and make sure they're selling it and offering it. You need to make sure it's part of your sales funnel, it's on your Google business profile, it's on your website, it's on your social posts, it's everywhere where you sell. And you need to make sure it's easy to book, that you can check out online, etc. So full training is in our Community Manager University program and our operator membership. You can find those details on our website, and we'll put the link in the show notes. Everythingcoworking.com/community manager is the link to our community manager program. I hope this has been helpful. My goal is to help show you some opportunities to add revenue to your business. If you missed last week, go back and listen to that one. It's a good one, and we're going to continue this series next week. So we'll see you same time, same place.